Yo, what's good, everybody, and welcome to the Real Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Peyton P.T. Do me a favor, man, hit that button or that subscription so that you can always get these podcasts when they come out. And if you've heard me before, I hope that you shared it out with at least two people. And that's the only way that I can grow this podcast, right? I'm looking for you all as friends, family, and guests, and hopefully to be better friends down the road to definitely help me get this content out. I think there's some value in it. If you don't know, this podcast is about leadership principles, self-development, preparing people to be the best versions of themselves. So myself, quick background, if you don't know, 22 years in the military from PG County in Maryland, right outside of the DC border. I've been doing leadership for over 25 years now. I've led at every level there is, from first line supervisor to second line supervisor, the organizational type of leadership to program leadership to team leaderships. I'm a project manager by trade. And even today, I founded a nonprofit. I'm on the board for another nonprofit. And of course, I have my own company that provides, corporate training, leadership development training, agile training as a framework, as well as cybersecurity training, and we're moving into workforce development for youth who are transitioning to adulthood and young adults. So, I'm busy, but I stay in this space. And then I got this podcast because I listen to a lot of leadership podcasts. And what I realized, at least from my opinion, a lot of them weren't real, right? They don't give you necessarily that real feel about what it's like to sit there and be a leader. They give you a lot of theoretical concepts, and then they give you a lot of, hey, I got here's 3 ways to stop conflict resolution and things like that. Where I want to be a lot more practical and focus on that practicality to say, hey, when I was sitting there having to deal with this conflict between these two individuals, this is how we did it. But before I can get to even that point, we have to build people up. There's a lot, you can't lead people until you're on your square, right? You have to be well squared out before you can start saying, hey, I want to go be a leader. You got to understand what that means. We got to get you in the right mind frame. So that's why there's a lot of self-development concepts in here that, I'm just touching the surface on a lot of these things. Then I would suggest y'all probably go do some research on it or contact me. I also do coaching. So helping people with that roadmap of their life to get to where they want to go to live that full potential. But today, what I want to really get into is committed versus involved, right? When I was in the military, a person asked me, did I know the difference between being committed versus being involved? And I was about 24, and I was like, nah, what? And they said, it's like the chicken and the pig, right? It's like the chicken and the pig. The chicken is involved and the pig is committed. And it took me a second to understand that. And then they broke it down and said, hey, the chicken is just delivering eggs. The chicken just has eggs and you eat that. The pig, they kill the pig to get you all that bacon, sausage, and ham that you eat for that breakfast, right? And that's more of the commitment element versus being involved. Now, just some normal definitions, right? If you don't like pig or you like, I don't even eat pork, right? That's fine. Just understand it's just a thing, right? But involved is when you're involved in your life versus committed, you're more passive. You kind of do what's you kind of do what's convenient, right? You're not really out there forcing the action. You're kind of just involved with your life, right? You kind of just go to work. You don't really make no ruffles at work. You don't try to have any ambition at work, even though you believe you should get promoted at work and you haven't done much. And you're not really doing anything intentionally. You're just kind of probably living up to what someone else thought you should be doing. People put these thoughts in your head. If I was to sit down and ask you, what do you want to do with your life? You might be like, man, I wanted to be an actor. And well, why didn't you act? Well, my parents thought that, I didn't have money to go to acting school, or so I just never really pursued it. I'd rather go here than there. I don't know if I was good. I didn't want people laughing at me when I was a kid, and that's all fine and dandy when I'm talking to these 15-year-olds when we're doing mentoring with young people, but you can't be 40, 45, still talking about you're worrying about what people going to think of you. And if you are, then let's figure out how to build that confidence up in you to get you to do the things that you want to do so that you can live that fulfilled life. When you're committed, though, it's intentional, right? You're consistent. You have an action plan. You are probably never in a comfortable position. You're probably always discomfort, right? Because you understand that there's going to be pain, There's going to be tears. There's going to be sweat in order to get to the thing that you want to get to in life. I grew up in PG County. I went to school. I graduated with 1.5 GPA. I didn't know what I was going to do after high school. Everyone was like, college. I barely made it through high school. How you going to tell me to go to college? But still, I went to PG College, PG Community College. As my mama say, I walked in one door, walked out the other door, right? I gave it no effort. I was just involved. There was no commitment to my life at that time. I was just living a life as life dictated it for me. And I was involved in that process. I was very passive. I didn't disrupt anything. And then it wasn't until, if y'all know my story, it wasn't until my son was born that I figured I had to do something else. That I never really did anything difficult or hard or had to make any level of decision, because from birth until 12th grade, my parents guided me all the way. So now I'm out of here and there's no more guiding. They're just advising. Now I got to figure out what to do with my young son while I'm living this life. So we, chose to go to the military. Hardest decision I probably ever made. Boot camp was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. But I went in with a plan. My plan, though it wasn't all figured out, it was go and do this 4 years, take that, experience and take that military dust on me and come out and get a job, because people love military people. Well, I ended up doing 22 years, and I took advantage of everything in the military that I could, because I started getting committed. When I went in, I was involved. When I got in there, I got very committed. When I started learning responsibility, accountability, leadership, resiliency, all of those type of things. And then, we had a war. So now I'm in combat operation areas, leading people in these operations. And, once that was all kind of done, man, I was very committed to my life, because maybe it was the fear of getting blown up over in a foreign land, or I don't know what it was, maybe just learning and seeing people winning all the time, right? They were getting out and they were making this money and they were getting out, they were taking all these trips, and they were getting out and they were doing all these things that I never done. So I started following better advice. That advice got me around people who were committed, which then in turn, I became committed into my life. But now that I'm back here and I'm out of the military, I want to now help people get to that committed part of their life and get out of that involved life. So you can't keep being passive. You have to understand it's not about feelings and about when you feel like doing something. You need to move forward and get a plan of what you want. Like, why? Why are you here? Why were you the one that made it to that egg, right? That came out and was born life and have the breath of life. Why was it you? And it wasn't you to sit here and be average. You can't be okay with average. And I don't care if how, what they say, it don't matter what hand you was dealt when you was born. It's what you do with the hand as you're living, right? And you could do so much with that hand. Maybe you need to partner in the beginning before you get new cards. Maybe you could trade cards in and trade them out, right? But you have to figure out some way to not let your early circumstances dictate what you're going to do today with your life. And you see it all the time, man. People are doing jobs that they hate. They get up every day, go to a job they hate. And I understand, I'm not hating on that, right? I get it. If they're paying you that right money, then that's where you are. But then when you get off of work, do you not have time to go do something you love? And it's cool when you're 25, 26 and you're trying to find yourself. But now, when you're getting around people who are like 56, 57, and you got less years in front of you than you do behind you, it's time to get serious so that hopefully that you can live your life with no regrets, right? Now, if you got that regret of like, man, I just wish I started earlier. Well, yeah, we all do, right? We come from those backgrounds where we weren't taught this, so we had to figure it out and learn it ourselves. And part of it is just stop listening to people and external things. So if you're in a space of listening to people who are external and you're like, oh, well, grandma said this, so I should probably do this. And then my mom said this, so that makes it. At some point, you have to realize you're adult. You are an adult, right? Remember when we was kids and we're like, man, I can't wait till I get older and I can make my decisions and I'm going to live my life and I'm going to follow my dreams. And somewhere through that life process, all of that got murdered. Now you in a job, you might be with a spouse you don't even like. You might have settled for your spouse because someone told you, oh man, that guy got insurance. That guy got a little bit of money. Or that guy got his own house. Ooh, you don't want to let him go. But you didn't love this guy. You barely liked this guy or this girl, right? But you settled because you're living what everyone else told you that you're good at, that's what you're good enough at, and that's as much as you can get to. Well, no, that's like being extra involved, right? Like you're just involved in letting people tell you how to live your life. There's no, and when you're by yourself and you're looking in the mirror and you're looking around your circumstances, are you happy? Or do you wish, like, man, I just wish I took that chance, but I was afraid, but I didn't have the money, but I didn't. Now, if we could switch that level over to being committed, it starts with that why. Why do you want what it is that you want? And that why has to be bigger than the pain you're about to go through, the discipline that you're going to have to follow, the accountability you're going to have to take. You're not going to be able to be committed. You can't live a life of commitment and blame everybody else for what's wrong. No, you got to look at yourself. Everything starts in here first. And once you start learning that and you do that enough and you start getting these small wins, this will become easier, right? It's just like anything else in life. If you start working out, in the beginning, that first month is tragic. It is terrible. When I was in the military and we had to go boot camp, that thing was terrible. But then we got used to it. Right now, when I'm running, we got to run 30 minutes. I ain't nothing. I ain't even breathing hard after the 30 minutes, right? After we've been at this for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, right? In the beginning, I wanted to throw up. Even people were throwing up, or the tracks and everywhere else get yelled at the whole time. But it gets easier, and it's the same thing with being committed. It's looking at your circumstance and saying, okay, I'm going to put this remote control down. I'm not going to sit here and watch. What's that? My daughter was watching Temptation Island. You can't sit there and watch 8 seasons of Temptation Island and then still talk about, I think I'm committed to no, you're not. You're involved. You rather watch people living their dream than live your own. And that's where, that just don't make any sense after a while. I'm not saying you can't take some time to relax from the grind and then sit down and watch it. But if you look up and it's 6 hours later and this is every day throughout the week, like if you get up in the morning, go to work, come home, watch Temptation Island, go to bed, get up in the morning, go to work, come home, watch Temptation Island, and go. Like, you can't have a TV routine and you're still in your prime. And you're 65, 70 and you're done working. Yeah, man, you can have all the TV watching you want. But when you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, in your 30s, in your 20s, what are you doing? Why are you watching other people live their dream? Meanwhile, you hate the life that you're living. You can't even dream. And you got to get motivated. Even though I have my things about motivation. Motivation is good for a short period of time, but then we got to get that turned into discipline, right? And now that's that commitment, right? That discipline and commitment, they kind of ride together, because when you're committed, you need to have a level of discipline. And once you have that level of discipline, there is no emotion that comes into these decisions. It's very simple. I have to get up and do this stuff or I won't get what I want. No one say, hey, well, how do you feel today? Don't matter, because no one asked you, how did you feel when you went to work today when you didn't want to? You was committed to that job because you was committed to that check. So, that's a transactional deal. But when it comes to you having a transactional deal with yourself, you blow yourself off. You're going to get there for boss man or boss lady, but you won't get there for yourself. And that makes no sense, because you all you got, right? G Money, right? We all we got, you all you got. But you're going to sit there and give your all, well, not your all, right? You don't give your all at work because you're just involved. So you're going to give what you got to get to satisfy these other folks that's going to replace you the moment you get sick, die, whatever the case. They got a new body in there within 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer if there's a security process. I mean, but you got to have a level of self-discipline to yourself to reach that goal. But you got to have that goal. You got to have that why, And as you start doing that, what you're going to start seeing is the results. You'll start seeing people who've been hanging out with you all this time, they're going to start falling off. That phone call comes a little bit less, right? Because you was cool when all you wanted to do was get off work, go to the bar and drink all day and all night. Right. But now you're like, oh, no, I'm a little bit more committed to the things I want. I want to do this stuff. So I can't go to the bar every night and drink. Not saying we can't drink maybe on Saturday, but we're not drinking Monday through Saturday. Right. And keep complaining about our jobs, meanwhile doing nothing about it, because the choices are yours. It is your choice. It's nobody else's choice. It's not your mama's. It's not your aunties. It's not your children. It's not your spouse. Right. The choice is yours. Your life, your life is your life. And you need to get some level of fulfillment for it. And maybe it's not money. So I never tell people success is money. I think success is finding happiness in yourself. And sometimes you can find happiness at $30,000 a year. But that energy of happiness comes back to your family. Now, your relationship with your kids are better. Your relationship with your husband is better. Your relationship with your moms and your aunties are all better because now you're living in a happy space and hopefully you get to that level of gratitude where I don't need to have everything to be grateful, right? I got my life. I'm breathing. I got my children. I got my wife. We live in a house. We're not starving. I'm grateful. Is there more to get? Yeah. If I want it, can I get it? Absolutely. I just focus on that why and I get back to my being committed. I don't live in the involved space anymore. I did. I just don't do it. And I don't even know if I can anymore. My days are not go, 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 but they're strategic moves on how I move. Because a lot of people who are involved in their life, right, who claim that they're committed, they just run in circles or they're running in place and they're never moving. You see them this day, you're like, what you doing? They're like, hey, man, yeah, I'm about to get this podcast up and I'm about to be moving and doing this and that and that. Okay, cool, man. 3 years later, hey, how you doing? Hey, man, I'm about to get that podcast up, man. I'm about to do right? It's like, okay, cool. 5 years later, hey man, I'm about to get that podcast up, man. I just gotta get that right speakers and I gotta get this whole thing. Man, like they talking and they're moving and they kind of master the manipulation of the people where y'all think they're moving, but they're not. They're just not moving. There's still not that commitment. So if I put you around a bunch of people, if I could take you out of your circumstance, put you around these people who is committed. They're committed to their life and committed to a goal and committed to a cause, committed to something, and they're moving. I guarantee you will pick up on that and start moving the same. Your circle is everything, right? And being committed to yourself and your life means you might lose some people in your circle. That's tough. I get it. But I know them since I was 4. And y'all are both in the same situation here. Y'all both at that laundromat, mad, talking about, yeah, if only we had a washer, I wouldn't have to use all these quarters to, get this laundry, right? And still complaining after all this time and all this year. Listen, I get it. I get it. Depending on who you are, depending on where you come from, you might not have a lot of people who got your back, who is helping you to get to these different points. But you just got to want it yourself. And if you're listening to me, then that means you want it. You say, hey, there's a Real Leadership Podcast. Let me hear what PT has to say. And this is what I'm pouring to you out of my heart today because this was on my heart all week. I'm sitting there talking to people and you just hear people complain all day about everything in their life. And it's this. And it's like, man, what are you doing about it? They're like, no, we just complaining, right? And it's like, man, what do you want out of life? And they're like, man, I don't even know. Man, you don't even know what you want. You're 60 years old. You never, you ain't even get close, to the top of the mountain. Like, I know some people who peaked in high school. Well, at least you peaked. Now, maybe you plateaued or you dropped. You know what I mean? But there's certain people who never even peaked. They just live their life doing what everybody wants them to do, right? They just drifting along the whole time. And then they're going to get on that deathbed and they're going to regret not living that life to the fullest, not being more committed to a purpose of what they felt they should have done, right? There's nothing worse in my mind to be sitting on that deathbed at 152 years old talking about, I just wish I went to the Grand Canyon. I wish I did enough to get me to the Grand Canyon. But I've been to the Grand Canyon. I was in my 50s. I wanted to go. We figured it out, and we got there, and we went, right? And that's what I want for everybody. I want you to obtain the thing that it is that you want the most. And that's why I don't want you to be passive in your life. I don't want you to be the chicken who just lay eggs. I want you to be that pig who gave it all to live that life of fulfillment. You know what I mean? So how do you shift, man? It starts with just a vision. Let's figure out that vision. What do you want? And there is no silly answers. It's crazy. You hear these little kids when they talk, and you be like, hey, little kid, right? I don't know if you talk to them like that, but hey, little kid, what is it that you want to be when you're older? They got all type of answers. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be this. I want to be that. We're like, man, work hard, eat your vitamins, right? Say your prayers, do all the things you need to do, and you can get there. We tell them to be committed to something in order to get there. Work hard. Oh, you're going to have to get smart in school. You want to take these classes, right? When I'm mentoring young men and women, and I always ask them, what is it that they want to do? And they'll say, oh, well, I want to just make money. Well, that's not an answer, right? So now we're going to go why or how. Why do you want the money? What you going to do with that money? Now, how are you going to get the money? And we go through this whole breaking down with that answer. Because without that roadmap, they'll never get there. And they don't have it, right? They're not smart enough at that point in their life to figure it out. And to be quite honest, there's people at older ages who ain't smart enough to figure it out. Not that you're stupid or dumb, but you just never had that mental exercise before to kind of work backwards, re-engineer a thought from the end, right? This is what you want here. Now let's go all the way back to where you need to start in order to get there. And let's follow that process. And if you don't understand that, I could guarantee your financial situation probably ain't where it needs to be either. And it's not ever about how much money you have. It's what you do with the money, right? You need a plan for your money as well. So if you're just living a life where you're just, like I said, being passive, right? We call that being just involved, then you're not really accomplishing anything. You're just living. And I think that's a terrible space to be, right? I will also suggest, to be quite honest, and this ain't no promotion for me, but you could definitely use me. You need a mentor. You need a coach, right? You need to be around the right people, a community of people who are moving that direction, right? Once you're in that herd, and that herd is moving, and you got all these connections, and you can call people. When you call them up, y'all might start with the pleasantries, right? Like, hey, how you doing? How your family doing? But eventually it's going to turn into that. So are you fulfilling that goal? Or is that business working for you? How's those trips coming along? Did you get your kids into these schools? Did you do the things you needed to do to get that promotion? Did you go back to school and get that degree? Did you go get that certification in order to get to where you need to go? What is stopping you? What barriers do you have? Oh, let's discuss those barriers. Hey, you know what? I might know someone who can help you through that barrier. If you just do this, it might suck, but hey, once you get it, you got it, right? It's yours. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but you got to get into the community of people who's willing to help you obtain the thing that you want. PT, how do I start? Contact me. Start there. If you're listening to this podcast, contact me and let's figure this out. Let's see what direction you want to go into. Let me utilize my network and let's see what we can do, right? At least I know we can build a roadmap. At least I know we can start that vision process and then we can start figuring things out from there. With that said, man, that's kind of all I really have for you for today. Definitely think about where you are in your life and think, are you happy? Think about it. Take this time out. That's my homework for you all. Tonight, when you're by yourself and you got some moments, just think to yourself, where do I want to be versus where I'm at? And what am I willing to do to get there before my time is up? And then if you need help, contact me and let's let you know, you can hire me. We can figure this out, right? But I hope you all have a great day, evening, week, month, whatever. I want you to have it all. Have all of it great for you. Make sure y'all pray. We're in unprecedented times. And I'm not going to, if you're not religious, then meditate, do something to get yourself in a great spiritual place, because that's what's needed now, is that spirituality and that resiliency, coping and understanding that, life will go on. It always has. So I hope you got something out of this today. I hope it motivated you. I hope that this is the first step. This is your remember when moment, right? And I always say your remember when moment is 10 years from now when you're going to look back and say, man, I remember when I was listening to PT podcast and he was talking about being committed versus being involved, man. And that changed my mind and got me to where I am today. CEO, business owner, teacher, coach, better husband, better wife, better parents, right? And I hope that's what it comes out to. Hey, once again, if you like this, forward it to at least 2 people, man. I think that's an easy ask. Just forward to them. Tell them that you think this is pretty cool. They should hear it. And then with that, man, just remember, real leadership makes the world go round. Real leadership. Take care.